Welcome back. This is Kimile, and you are listening to Heal with Kimile podcast. You ever hit burnout? Just, oh my gosh, I can't keep doing this. I got to change. My life isn't working. Ever had that kind of feeling? Of course you have. It's normal. We all go through this. But if you're the kind of person that is always helping other people and you're a step parent or a parent and you run circles with these kids and you make sure they get their grades turned in and it's just a constant go 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 go, you might have neglected yourself and you might have hit burnout, so your body's taking a hit. You're not functioning like you used to and you're tired. You might be really tired. Look, your body can't lie. Your body just, whatever it's going through, it cannot lie. So if it's having a hard time, it's going to let you know. And do we ignore that signal? Probably all the time. How many of us work through our pain, work through the headache, work through the tiredness? Well, we have to, Kimile. We have to make money. We got to keep our jobs. I know. We have to push ourselves to survive. I know. I get it. But at some point, I'm going to tell you it's going to catch up to you. And if you don't listen to your body, then your body's going to take it personal probably. And people say, oh, my body's betrayed me. I've got heart failure. I've got this and that now. No, your body was going through a lot for a long time probably, and it might have just hit tilt. So I think the word is balance. I'm working with a handful of women mostly, but men do this too. Like they're overworking, overdoing, paying for people. Again, they take it upon themselves to do so much for other people because they can. They're can-do people and they're capable and they're so smart and they're resourceful. And they get credit and they get respect. And that's a winning formula for them in life because people are praising them all the time saying, you are amazing and thank you so much. Who doesn't love that? We all want to be the hero. We all want to save the day. But if we're doing a lot for other people, we're not changing them and we're maybe not really serving them because they at some point have to carry the load for themselves. I can't tell you how many people have relied on their parents for something and they're in their 20s and 30s and their parents are still paying for certain things or they're giving them advice all the time. And then if they die, what happens? Because you don't have that person to go to anymore. You are not self-reliant. And necessity is the mother of invention, true. And so when that person's just not there anymore, they'll have to figure it out. But that's when growing up happens. That's when people really do step into taking care of their own survival. They have to kill what they eat, so to speak, right? I mean, I've got wealthy families that tend to help their kids a lot longer than people that don't have money. And these kids that are in their 30s are, I'm going to say they're brats. They're entitled. They're expecting the inheritance and they're expecting jobs or they're expecting favoritism. So try and go get a job with that kind of air and that kind of energy. It doesn't work. They get 5 or 6 jobs where they always get fired because they're brats. and people, like most people, don't like spoiled brats. They don't like the teacher's pet. They don't want someone around that, expects special treatment, right? People want to work with people that are working alongside of them, that follow the rules. There's rules. So if you are one of those people that are depending on someone who is a can-do person and super successful, at some point that's going to go away. That's not sustainable forever. I tell people, especially in these family dynamics, you're going to cause future harm if your child hasn't launched. And what does launching mean? Well, launching means that they're on their own. They're paying their own way. They're working. They're struggling. They're suffering a little bit. Like, how do you grow if you don't suffer? I mean, without pain, there's no gain, right? That's what they say in the gym. But there has to be some sort of self-creating and to become self-determined and to know yourself as resourceful. I see so many, again, spoiled kids that have contempt for their parents, these hardworking parents, because they're mad, they're jealous, they're competitive. And maybe they're mocking a little bit, maybe they make fun of their parents, but they sure take their money or they sure need their help. And at some point, they have to, get married and get on their own, maybe have children of their own. And they need to be the one that the buck stops with, like that person that child has to launch into their life. And they need to kill what they eat and they need to earn money. They need to, again, be the one that is providing and protecting. And if you've got super successful parents, they've taught you how to do this. They've showed you the way. I think working with families probably isn't a great idea. I think if you give your children jobs, depending on the company, it can cause a rift with other employees. I watch these people, again, these are the ones that get burned out. These are the ones that are doing all this heavy lifting because they do have the money or they've got the resources or they've got the mojo and they've got the energy to keep generating for other people. And if you're one of those people that's always generating for others, I'm telling you, you've got to find balance at some point because burnout is a real thing. I'm working with one woman who is a phenomenal counselor. She's a really good counselor, but she's got stepkids that she has generated for 15 years. And she didn't have her own children because she was working on these kids and helping these kids get through their trauma from loss of mom. She married into these kids. And so she was mom. She took over because the mom was MIA. And that's a lot. That's a job. And she loved it. Like this was her joy. This was her bliss. And she did a heck of a job. I would say she knocked it out of the park. But then at some point when they hit 17, 18 and they need to graduate or they've got to go to college, teenagers are difficult, I think. That's just a difficult era because they are finding their independence. They are getting their own voice. They are thinking their own thoughts. They are separating from their parents because they're supposed to launch. But when we're not needed anymore, when we as the step parents or the parents or the resource, so to speak, when we're not needed anymore, it's almost like there's, okay. And when the action stops and they've got to do it on their own now, because there's no way we can keep doing it for them. When they hit adulthood, you can't make phone calls. They don't want to talk to you. The bank won't talk to you. Like you have to make them make the phone calls or whatever. So when that kind of stuff happens and you're not required and you can't do it, there seems to be a little bit of a reverberation energetically. And so that's where I think burnout can come in. And I say find the balance. And when your body's fatigued and tired, sleep. Get your labs done. See if your vitamin D is low. If you're a female, check your hormones. Men should check their hormones too. But check your hormones. See if you're low in estrogen, low in progesterone. Get your hormones sorted out because we women, when we hit a certain age, we hit menopause. And so menopause is no joke. But that can lead to exhaustion if we're always the one generating for others. And look, there's value in that. I get it. But you're not helping people generate for themselves when you're always generating. Okay. And sometimes I say when the kids are still home, take the net away. I mean, like just start saying, okay, this is on you now. If you want to get good grades, you're going to have to turn in the homework. I'm not going to chase you down. I'm not going to keep making phone calls to the teachers or fielding excuses for you. If you miss a class, I'm not calling an excuse in from you anymore. We have to stop enabling these kids or people in our lives to not be responsible or accountable. See, if that's how you're generating for them, then they're not learning how to be their word. They're not learning how to excuse themselves or answer for themselves. They need to be doing these kind of things on their own. We want to make life easy for them. We don't want them to go through what we went through. We didn't have a lot of help, so we want to be super helpful. This generation, my generation, I think really does overdo a lot for their kids. I see it with a lot of my friends. And the kids at some point are going to have to sort things out. And they need to make a mistake. They need to fail, have their failure moment, preferably under your roof before they're out in life and, in college when, the grades really matter, before they're married and, they can't handle conflict or whatever. You want to have that moment where they start picking up responsibility for themselves while you're still around to mop up the problem with them, help them do it. And so I say, before they go to college, before they move out, again, stop doing these things for them. Don't do for them what they can do for themselves. That really is kind of like the rule of thumb. At some point, just quit generating for them. And so they got to generate for themselves. Well, they aren't used to it. They don't know how. They miss appointments. They get late fees. I mean, just things like that happen. There are no-shows for places, or they didn't get their homework turned in. If you're always the one chasing them down to get their homework turned in or whatever, again, at some point, you're not going to be there in college. So they got to sort this out themselves. Let them fail. Let them fail while you're there to believe in them. To say, all right, well, what can you do? Well, what are you going to do to figure that out? Like, let them fall. Let them fall. It's painful to watch them. I know. It's like we want to just, catch them. You keep doing that. That's going to be a big fall down their life. Okay. So let them fall when they're in your home and the consequences aren't so dire. If they don't pay something, if they didn't pay their car insurance, if they don't drive their car, there needs to be natural consequences for helping people get launched. And look, some of these people they're adults, and they're still letting other people generate these things for them. I mean, you get the ick with some people. One of my biggest icks with people is when they let everyone else fight their battle. So they're grown. I mean, they're 40s. They're mothers, they're fathers. I see it mostly in women. Maybe that's stereotyping, but that's my experience. But sometimes they're victim-y, they're just weak and they need someone to save them or help them. And they get their kids fighting their battles or they get their husband fighting their battles. They don't want to confront. They don't want to be grown up in a way. So they utilize other people to feel sorry for them. They milk that. And so that is just such an ick to me. It's like, don't do that. I can't stand that. I would never do that. And it is manipulation to be taken care of. And, we all know those grandmothers and those mothers that are the guilt trippers and you never come around and all that stuff. And again, I don't do that. I don't demand things from my kids to show up and take care of me, make sure I feel a certain way. And they do. They tend to do that anyway. They want to, but I don't expect it and I don't put pressure on them. But it is interesting how people use other people to take care of them. So if you don't insist that your children launch, or, if you don't wean off boyfriends, girlfriends, people, friends that are utilizing you because you're so, resourceful, I'm telling you, you're getting used. You're going to get used. You're going to feel used. And so when burnout happens, that's the flood that opens. It's like, oh, and, I've been working with someone who is angry. Like she's finally angry. She's been so sweet, so great. Her health has taken a little hit. And people just keep it coming. She's been generating their lives for a long time. And she's a counselor, so she's in the world of this. And she's like, Uncle, I got to work on me. I got to take care of me. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And it's your time to do that. It's almost like you've got to let go of being that person for everybody else and just champion them to say, you got this. You can do it. Find someone else to help you because I can't. Which is hard. It's hard for people like that to say, nope, I'm done. I'm tapped out. Find someone else to save you. But if you don't do that and put yourself first, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to hit burnout. And that's a real thing. And there's physical consequences for that. So when you get angry, if you hit this burnout and you're like, you know what, I'm sick of taking care of everybody else. I got to take care of me or I'm going to make it. That's right. And now you're angry at everybody. You're like, oh, look, the anger is healthy. I know you don't want to be angry, but the anger is healthy because it is protective. It's self-protection in a way, because as long as you're angry and you're not going to go down that road, you're going to say no. You got to stay angry to be able to hold your power, to be able to keep saying no and mean it. Because if you're not, it's a slippery slope. You'll go right back to being everybody's hero, everybody's savior. And then what's your life? At some point you've been the family hoist or the hoist for your friends. A reality check for you if you are going through a health issue and you're like, I need help. Can you help generate for me? And people that you've been saving for years aren't there. They aren't going to get back. They're not going to be able to pull it off. They don't have it in them to be generating for you because you surrounded yourself with people that needed you to save them. And that gave you purpose and that gave you value and worth. And that's how you got paid even, But when it comes time for you and you need help, they're not there. So yeah, you're angry, you're upset. So it's time for you to shift and you put you first. And then you preserve yourself. You take care of yourself and you create new boundaries. You create a new way of interchanging or exchanges with relationships. You create a new way of being inside of a relationship. Even in a conversation when someone's used to, what do you think about this? What should you do? What would you do with my house if you're decorating? Again, have someone, make them go to work for you. I would do this. I would do that. Don't do that. Like just say, I don't know. I love what you've done now. Maybe you should look at magazines. You need to just not generate for people when they ask questions like that of you. It's like putting you to work for them, right? So it is a subtle shift. But when you're anticipating someone's needs because you're going to meet their needs, there's a different vibration. You're there and you're wanting to save them. You're putting energy toward them and they know this. And so they let you be that resource for them. They let you generate for them. But when you're not generating for them, you're holding your energy over here. And there's a difference. And people will say, you just seem different. Yeah, I'm just here right now. I'm just being present right now. I'm dealing with me. You just explain where you're at. It's not wrong to do that. It's actually healthy for you to do that. And then people won't be able to just get all that energy that you give all the time. Burnout means you're spending so much spirit on others and not yourself that you're depleting yourself. That's what it is. We spend our energy, our spirit on life. And if we're over giving, then we're getting depleted. So you don't want to be spilling your energy all the time for other people. So if you're hitting the burnout, you've got to pull back and go, where am I out of balance? Who am I giving too much to? What am I giving too much to? Is it worth it? Is it going to happen? And I've got a client right now who's working on some wallet things, Bitcoin things. And look, that's all high risk, high reward, but it's also not predictable. It's caught on the wild, wild west still until it gets, regulated. But there's all these conversations all night long because it's a foreign country, he's working with whatever. And I'm telling you, he's not sleeping. So he's been sick, but he can't, I can't miss out on those millions of dollars. Well, wait a minute. let's be realistic here. Has it ever happened? Have you ever made the money on that? Well, no, but it could. Okay, so to me, it's like a gamble. And then it's robbing him of his sleep. And so he's been getting sick. So cancer is there, right? So if you don't rest, how could your body heal? See, and I don't care what kind of money it is. I don't care about billions of dollars. It isn't worth your health. It's really not worth your life. It's not worth that. So this is the conversation. This is the insanity. But I'm going to keep giving my time and being on the phones and fighting with people or whatever, because that's going to come in. And then when that comes in, what are you going to spend it on? Treatments? You have to look at what you're spending your energy on. Is there a return on your investment? You're the currency, your vibration, your spirit. What are you spending your spirit on? That's who you really are. And there needs to be a return on your investment, right? Now, with kids, when they're little, that's just the duty. That's our duty. But you still can watch getting burned out. But if you're spending your energy trying to make all this money in an online something at night and you're not sleeping, that's not sustainable. That can't be sustained. It will kill you. And then is it worth it? No, not worth it. So when I work with people to kind of find balance and get balance back in their life when they come to see me, when they've got this burnout stuff going on, I say, okay, here's your paper lying down the middle. What are you doing purely out of obligation? You're just doing it because you're obligated to. Make that list. And then who in your life are you servicing? Are you a resource for? Are you generating for? Purely out of obligation. You think you need to. There's a guilt trip if you don't. And so a lot of these people are family members, they're siblings, they're best friends for life. And they're used to you doing life for them. So I get that list from people, and usually it's long-time relationships that have just been on that gravy train of, you being there for them forever. And then I say, would that person be here for you if now that you're going through this, can you call on them for money? Can you call on them to babysit? Can you call on them to watch your house? Whatever. The answer is typically no, because it doesn't ever go both ways. Not usually. I shouldn't say always, but most of the time it doesn't go both ways. But I have people look at the real motivator behind them constantly generating for other people. And what I have found is it was what they got approval for, praised for growing up. And that person that they were generating for was super grateful. It might have been a grandparent that was sick and you were helping him walk or you were making him food. Whatever you did with that turned into something that was ideal for you, and they loved you for it. But you have to not just use that skill set. That winning formula can't be everything for everybody like that. You've got to do that for some people and not everybody. And you first have to, put that oxygen mask on yourself before you put on other people. So if you have heard anything that you would like to talk to me about in my discussion here about burnout, I would love to talk to you. I'm available, and you can book with me on my website. That's healwithkimile.com, HEAL with KIMILE.com. Thank you for listening. Take care. Bye.